Positive thinking is important. And keep it up. Keep it high. But if you want to get your real knowledge, just cut down on the negative thinking. Cut it down, cut it down, cut it down. That's the villain voice. That's the critic in your head. That's the demotivator. That's the discounter. That's the one that raises the doubts. And you can shut it up. It takes practice. It takes some discipline. But people say, well, I think I'm aware of my negative thinking, but they're not. About 70% of our negative thinking goes unperceived by us. It is so embedded in our day-to-day behavior.
We're not even aware of it.
We're not even aware of it. About 70%. It is so much just ingrained in the way we go about living.
It's habitual thinking.
Yes. And so let me tell you how it shows up. I'll talk about the 5 C's.
Okay.
Okay. The sneak attack of the 5 C's. Okay. The first one is complaining. Grapping. You know, it's too hot in Dallas. Well, it is.
Yeah.
But that's not going to change if I gripe about it. Okay, so the first one is complaining. The next one's criticizing. Well, the grid went down today in Texas. We had brownouts. My air conditioners, and like there's always someone to criticize. So we've got complaining, we've got criticizing. Next one is concern. And I'm not talking about being empathic here and having concern for some other person. I'm talking about garden variety worrying. I'm concerned about this. Well, I'm concerned about inflation. Well, I'm concerned about, the news. All right. The next one is commiserating. We come in, and I sit down with this person, and they start their C's, their C talk.
They're complaining.
And I say, I get it, man. Yeah, I understand. I'm not doing anybody any good. When I start commiserating, I'm not doing anyone any good. It's destructive to both of us. And then the last one is catastrophizing, which is just when you're really down, you just blow things all out of proportion. But those things sneak in. If you start watching people, watching ourselves, how much we do this, and of course, we're surrounded by so much negativity. You listen to the news, you get on social media, and on and on and on.
So we got to learn how to cut out the negative thinking versus adding more positive thinking. Because you can keep adding positive thinking, but if you've got dirty water in the water, it's still going to be dirty. So you got to remove the dirty, the challenging thoughts to have more pure energy, cleaner energy that can make you more effective, more efficient.
Beautiful, yeah. Now, here's what's interesting. So we're talking about making a quantum leap. We're talking about change. And really, if you said, what are you all about, Price? What, your life, where did you point yourself? Well, I just got caught up in positioning people to do more with themselves. There's so much out there, and people have so much potential to do things with themselves. Let's arm them. Let's position them to do what they can do with themselves.
You said there was 2 different scales. One is about optimism and pessimism, essentially, right? Is that what the 2 different sides of the spectrum? And you were saying that if we want to increase our confidence, if we want to increase our belief in self, one of the things that we can do is start removing pessimism, negative thoughts, negative thinking from our life. But a lot of people might say, well, Price, that's great and all, but that just sounds a little too woo-woo-y. That sounds a little too fluffy for me. Just be more positive, think more positively. Is that really going to help me create more quantum leaps? And shouldn't I have some, critical thinking and really, question and doubt things? Or is that just being, am I being too negative if I do that?
Okay. When someone decides they want to make a quantum leap, they're talking about major change. Now let's talk about what happens when change hits. In this case, self-imposed change. Now, I've seen this for decades in organizations where it's major change. You're being acquired. You're being merged. You're being downsized. You're being restructured. Okay? And so it's self-imposed when we're making quantum leap. But the same dynamics come into play as when the world, our world, the company we work for or whatever, the organization that we're stuck in, all of a sudden takes a hard right turn. So here's what happens when change hits. The first scan is for danger. That's how we're wired.
Danger. Whenever there's change, it feels like there's danger.
Yeah. What could go wrong here? How could I get hurt in this deal? What's going to happen to me? And all of these me issues come into mind. So, who was it? John Dryden said, self-defense is nature's oldest law. And so our defense mechanisms come into play. But when change hits, whether it's imposed on us or self-imposed, the first thing that happens is, okay, things are changing and the future gets a little blurry. So we got a new dose of ambiguity and uncertainty, okay? And people vary greatly in their tolerance for ambiguity. The second thing that happens is the trust level drops in an organization. You're going to change yourself, make quantum leap, the trust level in yourself drops too. The villain voice goes crazy with that. So we got the ambiguity and uncertainty, the drop in self-trust, and then self-preservation takes over as a driver of behavior. It does in an organization, and it does in you as an individual when you start to make a quantum leap. Okay, and so we're in the negative zone now.
It's all negative. It's all negative energy.
Yeah, it's concern. It's that concern. And we may be griping, we may be criticizing, complaining, all of this kind of commiserating with the people around us. And so
it's hard to create a quantum leap in that space.
it is, but what is so important is for people to know what's coming. People don't tell them. I think this is one of the things that is a little bit of a problem with a lot of the self-improvement books. Go do this, do magnificent things. But by the way, en route, let's not talk about that. But you should, because if you will tell people what's coming, it does so much to equip them to deal with it. They know what's happening. I always knew if I was doing a keynote, it might be just the top deck of officers in a company, or it might be 100 middle managers that you're talking to, but I want to tell you what's coming. It's like day one can be very exciting, but there's always day two. Brene Brown talks about day two. You can't escape day two. And it goes back to that old saying about the messy middle.
It's messy.
Yeah. And it's kind of like if I want to redo my house, my kitchen. I've got this glorious idea of what the kitchen is going to look like once we redo it and everything.
In the middle of it, you're like, this is chaos.
Yeah, it's chaos. You got dirt everywhere. You got holes in the wall. You got wires hanging. It's just...
Is this ever going to look nice? Yeah.
It's a passage, and people need to understand it's a journey, but if you don't tell them that, they get lost in the desert.